Hey guys, over the past 6 months, I've been driving this 2025 RAV4 Hybrid XLE, and I just want to share with you my experience on it. So first, we'll start with the buying process. On November 9th, 2024, I put a deposit down for this RAV4. The dealer said it's going to be 3 to 6 months wait time, but 2 months later, I received a phone call saying the car is ready for delivery. So on January 2nd, I picked up this 2025 hybrid RAV4 XLE in blueprint. There was no negotiation, there was no trade-in. What you see for MSRP is what you get. So the total cost for me was $42,708 before taxes. And after taxes, because I'm in Ontario, the total came out to be $48,260 Canadian. And at the time, it was between this car and the Mazda CX-50 Hybrid. The reason why I was thinking about the Mazda was because it shares the same drivetrain as this Toyota Hybrid. The only difference is that it has a Mazda interior, so everything feels slightly more premium. But what made me choose the Toyota over the Mazda is because I knew that this is going to be the last model year for this current generation of Toyota. You see, the Gen 5 RAV4 has been out since 2018. And that means it's been out for 7 years now. If you take a look at the history of Toyota's RAV4s, they generally do a new refresh once every 5 to 7 years. Because this is the last model year of this generation, it means any bugs that you see will likely be fixed already. So if you plan on keeping this car for a very long time, this is the model year to buy. One of my other considerations for this car was about theft, because at the time, the RAV4 was one of the most stolen cars in all of Canada. When I called up my insurance, they said, yeah, don't worry about it. Turns out I didn't need to buy any additional security equipment, and I also didn't have to pay a premium because it was stolen very often. Insurance said as long as you lock your car up, park it in your driveway or in your garage, you should be fine. And so far, this has been working out fine. Now let's take a look at the exterior of the RAV4. I don't particularly love it, but at the same time, I don't particularly hate it. It's just okay for me. But one thing I do want to talk about is the trunk. You see, the trunk has this sloped design, which means you get more length out of the bottom of the trunk than you do at the top. In fact, you get a full 40 centimeters longer, which is about 17 inches. This means if you have anything tall and long, it might fit the bottom of the trunk, but the top might protrude out. Now, luckily, with these power trunk doors, if you do try to close it with some kind of protrusion, then the doors will just stop and the car will just beep at you. Other things about this trunk is that there's no quick release for the fold-down seats. This means if you ever want to fold down the seats, you have to go around and use a shoulder latch to fold the seats down. Also, when you do fold the seats down, they don't fold completely flat. So if you plan on doing any car camping, you're going to have some kind of riser to make the entire platform flat. One thing I noticed about this power trunk is that it makes this popping noise when you open it. Not really an issue, just something I noticed. Now onto the interior of the RAV4. In terms of the interior, the door handles are really far forward. This means you don't get the mechanical advantage you normally would get if the door handles were positioned further back. It takes a bit of getting used to, but you do need to use a bit more strength when closing the doors. The next thing is the door switches and the light switches. In previous versions of this RAV4, the light switches weren't actually illuminated, so you would have had to buy this extra third-party accessory and swap out your light switches for illuminated ones. Now in this latest model year, they've included it stock from the factory. One thing I noticed is that the instrument panel is made out of the soft touch plastic. It's textured, so it kind of looks like leather, but it's not actually. And the stitching further tries to create that illusion. In general, most economy cars all have this kind of material. And what I don't like about it is that it causes a lot of glare when it's bright outside. So you get this reflection from the dash onto the windshield. An easy solution for this is to put a carpet over top of the dash and you're good to go. And speaking of dash, let's take a look at that instrument cluster. One thing I don't like about this instrument cluster is that it has this very soft plastic covering. And when I say soft, I mean you can take a microfiber towel, brush it over, and it'll create scratches. And the second thing about this is that it's angled in such a way that it collects dust. And so the only real way for you to clean it without scratching it is to use some kind of air duster tool that will blow away whatever is on the instrument cluster. So moving on to the steering wheel, this car does come with a heated steering wheel, but it only heats up on the two sides. I know that Honda CR-Vs, they heat up the entire steering wheel. And so if that's something you need, then this car will not offer it. As for the storage compartments, it's made out of hard plastic throughout, which means anything you put on here will slip and slide. This is true for the passenger side, the center console, and also the driver's side compartment as well. One way to overcome this is to buy some third-party rubberized mats that you can place on top for some more grip. Finally, the passenger seat sits pretty high up. There's no way for you to adjust the height of this, except in the limited trim, which comes with electronic adjustment. The reason why you can't adjust the height is because the brackets on these seats are fixed and they're really tall. So the best you can probably do is remove some cushion material from the seat itself. Other than that, if you can think of some other way to reduce the height of the seat, let me know in the comments below. So if you are 6 foot or higher, chances are your head's gonna hit the roof of this car. Next, let's move on to the infotainment. And the screen is deceptively small. At first you look at it and you see a big bezel, but then once you turn it on, you see that the bezel has another bezel. And so you have this 2 bezel system going against you for this teeny tiny screen. Although the screen is small, it's big enough to use Android Auto. Unfortunately, it's not big enough to list more than 3 apps on the side here. And so this means if you want to switch between YouTube Music and Audible, you have to go into the apps and then change it from there. A bit of an inconvenience, but it's okay. Now talking about Android Auto, I do notice that the wireless connection sometimes disconnects. It works 99% of the time, but that 1% when it does disconnect, it's always when you need it the most. So the other day I was driving on the highway towards Toronto and I knew I was approaching my exit, but I wasn't sure which one it was. And so when I looked over, I got a message on the system that says connection failed. Seeing that I'm traveling at a pretty fast speed and there's people behind me and in front of me, it wasn't a good spot to be in, especially if you needed to pull over to the shoulder. Now onto the driving impressions. So now we're going to accelerate a bit, all the way up to 80. Now I haven't really accelerated fast at all, right, as you can see, but you know, under normal acceleration, you can hear that it's actually not too loud. And in fact, even at 80 right now, you hear very, very little amounts of wind noise and very little amount of road noise as well. So this car, overall, it's actually pretty quiet if you're driving 80 kilometers an hour. Now, I'm gonna get up onto the highway in a little bit and show you what it sounds like when you drive a bit faster. Now we're driving at 110 kilometers an hour, and as you can hear, there's quite a bit of road noise. It's not so much engine noise or wind noise, but it's definitely a lot of road noise. And I think part of it is because I'm running the stock tires. I've seen some people swap out the stock tires for a different brand, and they said it helps with the road noise a lot. When I first got this car and I was driving it on the highway, it sounded extremely loud to me because I was coming from a Honda CR-V. But after owning it for 6 months, you get used to the road noise and it doesn't affect me as much anymore. I might try swapping out for a different set of tires eventually, but for now I'm gonna keep these on and see how long they last. Now as we slow down, you can hear that the noise quickly softens. There's not nearly as much road noise and nearly not as much wind noise. Overall, if you drive around 80 kilometers an hour, the sound is completely fine. But when you drive like 110 kilometers an hour, then that's when the sound gets kind of loud. Another thing is when you're accelerating, the transition from electric to gas is also very, very smooth. You do feel a little bit of a jolt, but it's just enough to be noticeable, but not enough to be uncomfortable. Toyota has definitely done a good job with the engine transition from electric to gas and then back from gas to electric. So in terms of efficiency, this car gets about 6.8 liters per 100 kilometers in the winter and about 5.8 liters per 100 kilometers in the summer. I also want to talk a bit about the Toyota Safety Sense 2.5. This safety feature comes with dynamic radar cruise control and also lane keep assist. If you don't know, dynamic radar cruise control means if you're traveling faster than the car in front of you, then the car will automatically slow down the cruise control speed to match the speed of the car in front of you. It's really useful if you're doing long highway drives or in stop-and-go traffic. I think Toyota's implementation of this cruise control is really, really well done, and I use it all the time. On the other hand, the lane keep assist is not very well done. What it's supposed to do is keep you between the lanes, but what it does instead is ping-pong you back and forth between the lanes. And so you don't feel safe at all when you have this active. What's more, if you do have it active, the car will constantly nag you every 5 to 7 seconds to nudge the steering wheel. This is so that the car knows that you're still awake and present. One other safety feature I found to be quite useful is the backup radar sensors. It's really, really useful if you're backing out of a tight spot and you can't see behind you. Sometimes the backup camera just doesn't cover a wide enough angle, and having the car alert you that somebody might be coming in behind you is also really useful. Overall, this car is excellent. What I purchased wasn't necessarily something fun to drive, but instead it was the peace of mind that I have knowing that I can get to my work reliably. And this is what really separates this car from, say, a weekend track car. And so this is my 6-month review of the 2025 RAV4 XLE. That's it from me. Thanks for watching.